Good evening, everybody. Welcome to another Atlantic Bushcraft Adventures episode. Tonight, episode 92, it's Gear of the Month time, and we're talking a little bit broader this time, but not really. Technology in the woods. Uh, my thinking on this, I came up with this title, was that just with technology in the woods, I kind of want to cover all the little bits of technology that we can recommend to you guys, because we don't really have any one specific technology, or at least I didn't, that I could focus in on really, really well because it's just overlapping a lot of the same features and you can kind of make your own decisions on some of that stuff. Because technology really is personal. You can pay a lot of money and get a whole bunch of features that might be useful to you, or you can pay a smaller amount of money and just get the bare necessity of the features that you might require. And that's kind of where I came from on some of the technology stuff. What about you, Ben, before we get into this?
Yeah, no, I, I think it's an interesting topic that we found a bunch of things we want to talk about. But yeah, I think we should just go right into it.
Fair enough. So we're going to flip over to the old. So the first one up, of course, is one you brought to me there, and it is a cell phone, and I can't pronounce the name. Can you say that for us, Ben?
Human Bison. Now, this kind of links into something. I think it's a bit of an obvious one now. Is I think for the most part, almost everyone now I go out with, your phone tends to be the big technology thing we bring, and it's because I think pound for pound, it can't be beat. Modern smartphones, they hold your GPS, they hold your camera, they hold your books, they hold your movies, they hold tracking programs. They hold so much stuff. And this one I think has barometers, underwater cameras, and I'm not looking at this as a phone. I'm looking at this as a backup, because I do have a good phone. I have a phone that I use and I use for a lot of stuff, and I think it's great. But the reality is, I think the big fear everyone has is, with all your eggs in one basket, what do you do if you lose that one item? So I have actually considered buying a second phone, and this is a bit of a budget phone, but it's listed as a rugged, tough phone that's capable of quite a bit. And that's why this one kind of made it to my list. This is why I sent this particular one to you, because it holds most of the functionality of my existing phone. And I don't care if it works with our networks. It does, but maybe not as many channels as you would, or as much of a bandwidth as some of the more mainstream ones. So you may find it doesn't work as good on the cell phone towers. But even with no network, and although you could switch your SIM card if your main phone got broke, it should still give you basic functionality of your GPS and other backup systems. So that's why I kind of brought that up. It does give you a lot of punch, right down to the fact that built-in cameras, built-in flash, which you can use as like a flashlight and stuff. So there's a lot of stuff that you can get out of a cell phone. And I don't think anyone's going to argue that a cell phone is now basically an essential technology in any given adventure now.
No, and I can't argue with you either. Cell phone made it to my side of the list too. I had it sitting here to talk about, much for the same reasons. I use it as a backup, like you said, and it just has that all-in-one feel to it. I mean, well, not feel to it. It's literally all in one. It's got your camera, it's got your flashlight, it's got your GPS. You can have your maps. My wife and I went out this year just to do our ATV and vacation there. And I mean, we were using Google Maps to literally like look at satellite photos and try and figure out where trails and stuff went. Um, and not only that, if you're in an area where you still have a little coverage, it is that kind of emergency land, or not, lifeline. You know what I mean? Like, you can still make that call. There's apps you can download onto your phone that, as long as you're in service, you can literally just hit a button and it'll send coordinates to. I think even Google Maps has that ability now. You hit a button and it basically shares your location. If you get in trouble, you can literally send people right to where you're going to be.
Yeah. And one of the reasons I really got to thinking of this is one of my GPSs recently, I left it with a battery in it for an extended period of time. The battery leaked, and now my GPS is not functioning as it should. In fact, it won't even turn on. Can I possibly fix it? Maybe. Do I? But here's the thing: when I went to look at a replacement, a good replacement GPS is going to cost me a few bucks.
Mm-hmm.
I will spend a similar amount of money on this other device that has a GPS built in, plus a whole lot more, like significantly more functionality. So it's one of the reasons it lands on my list, because honestly, they, if you don't need the top of the line Samsung, top of the line Apple, I'm not picking on brands here. I know I'd like to, but I'm not. If you don't need the top of the line, any basic smartphone has most of that functionality built in. It's right in there.
And yeah, you can literally you can go on things like the marketplace and Kijiji and stuff like that. I mean, I have an old phone here. This is my old phone before I upgraded, and literally that's what I'm setting it up for. It's just a backup to throw in the truck. That has basic functionality of GPS and stuff like that. If I'm off somewhere and I decide to take a stroll in the woods more than anything, because I mean that happens. You're out and about, you see a dirt road, you want to know where it goes. You get up there, there's apple fields, something like that. You want to go for a little walk, see if it's good hunting ground, good camping ground, whatever the case may be. Maybe you just want to go out and see the property lines. It's good to throw in your pocket if something happens, because it's those little jaunts you don't plan for where things can potentially go wrong. You know what I mean?
Yeah, nobody ever walks into the woods expecting to get lost or hoping to get lost. And that's the thing. It's the little jaunt. It's the time you stepped off the trail, whether it's because you've seen something glitter in the woods, or you needed a second of privacy, or whatever reason you had to walk away from that trail. That's the chance that something kind of goes wrong, that you trip and fall and hurt yourself, or that you get turned around and you think the direction you're going is back to the trail, and it's not. Now you're further away. And it just compounds once things go wrong. A little device like this gives you a hell of a lot of options to help, to signal, to figure your own way out. It really does help. Like you said, setting it up, you can download most of your maps. You can download all the maps for Nova Scotia in that, and it's really not taking up any amount of memory in it because of what it's capable of.
No, not at all. I mean, like once again, my old phone, to go buy this phone online secondhand, $50.
Yeah.
It's got a 64 gig storage in it. The RAM's not overly impressive by today's standards anymore, but I mean, it's still got a decent camera. The GPS still works in it, so throw that in my pocket. If it goes bad, I get a GPS. If I just want to take a few pictures while I'm in there, I got something that's in there that still has an IPX rating, so it's somewhat waterproof. I think it's only IPX4 or something like that. But anyway, long story short, it has everything I could potentially need for convenience. You know what I mean? Oh, that's a neat tree. I want to take a picture of that. Or oh, that's a weird track. I want to take a picture of that. Or oh, I wonder where I'm at. Whose land is this? I can mark a point and I can go and figure out if it's private land or crown land. If it's private land and I want to do something there, I might even be able to go on something like Viewpoint, figure out if the information is public, who owns it, could give them a call. I mean, there's a ton of things you can do with it.
Yeah. So I think we've beaten this a little bit, but I mean, the fact is, like I said early on, pound for pound, ounce for ounce, gram for gram, it's possibly one of the most valuable things in my pack. There's nothing else that gives me that much functionality for that weight. I mean, I love my knives, I love my packs, I love a lot of the gear I take in. It's important gear. This piece of technology is a bit of a game changer. It's something that, our grandfathers never had. Could they survive well in the woods? Hell yeah. But this is the true advantage between now and then. There hasn't been great breakthroughs in almost any other technology out there. Tents, hammocks, sleeping bags. We're still using a lot of the same technology. The phones, are this technology. This is what's really changed. And it's made a game changer. If they want to take photos of their trips 50 years ago.
Carl made a very good point too. Just so everybody's clear and anybody listening out there, with your cell phone, you can use it to watch the Atlantic Bushcraft Adventures. I mean, Carl, amazing 2 cents. Why didn't we think of that, Ben?
You could. You can download all 92 podcasts. Have 92 podcasts. You know how long you can be in the woods and listen to us? You can literally listen to us for like 5 days straight.
I was gonna say, Ben and I kind of hammered this out the other day, and we figured the average length of our show is an hour long, probably a little bit better, but let's say an hour. So guaranteed 92 hours of entertainment, good or bad, it's entertainment. But in any case, yeah. So cell phone good. So that was kind of the obvious one. Everybody's like, oh, the first thing I go in with is our cell phone. We agree. These are our reasons why. If you haven't taken your cell phone into the woods, it's definitely something you should start considering taking in there just because it's so convenient. But let's move on to some of our other stuff now. So the next one up that we have, this is one you brought us here, Ben, and it is a Garmin eTrax 10. So we're in that world of GPSs. GPS made my list as well. I just happen to have the one that I use in my hand, and I was going to talk about it. But this, I was looking it over. This is a great GPS for the money that's coming out to it.
So I mean, not to hide anything, I have a particular hate on for Garmin, but honestly, this is a tried and true tested Garmin. The eTrex series has been around for quite a while. They're very reliable. They're known, they're known workhorses in the industry. And it's a dedicated GPS system. So, as much as we tout this, the cell phone as being a great item, a great device, and it is, and it's fairly accurate, and it gives us a ton of stuff. A dedicated GPS always has slightly better functionality. It's designed for it, where a cell phone has that capability, and then there's apps to go onto it. So it's hard to beat a dedicated GPS. And they're usually, generally overall pretty tough. This is an affordable model. You're talking sub $200 with some good functionality. I mean, you have a screen. You can sort of do tracks and stuff. Great if you want to get into like geocaching and stuff. Not that you can't do it with a phone, but I've often do. And one of my GPSs is down. I still have another one. My other one is actually a Garmin. It's older than the one that broke on me recently. It doesn't have the functionality of the one I just recently lost. So that's the one. Yeah, that's one I want to throw up there. I don't think you can really go wrong with a Garmin eTrex. And this is what I would call a very reasonably priced model for what it can do. So definitely something to consider if you're looking at a dedicated GPS.
And I completely agree with you. So what I'm going to do, Ben, is I'm just going to jump into the next one, and I'll add my 2 cents in at the end, simply because I just had GPS. I didn't have any specific models I had poked out. That's kind of a lacking on my side, because the one I was going to reference has been discontinued for a long time. So I like the fact you actually have some good costing ones here. So the next one up, where you did say you do not have the kindest approach to Garmin's, this is a Magellan. And it's an Explorist, and once again, for the Magellan line, this is tried and true. The Explorer series, anyway, I know lots of good things about them. People really tend to like them.
So I've had Magellans, the one that I've recently had that broke, and it's my fault it broke. Like, don't get me wrong. You can't put batteries in these things and leave them alone for months and months at a time and think that when you go back, they're always going to be perfect. I've lost many a flashlight that way. Now I've lost the GPS, and it's a bit heartbreaking, but the reality is, had I taken better care of it, it'd still be functional. I find bang for your buck, Magellan gives you a little bit more. This one would have a colored screen. I think generally the Explorist lines have a decent mapping system that you can get with it. Mine had all Topo Canada maps in my particular one I had bought. So I think they're a very good one to consider. So if I was looking at a GPS tomorrow, I'd probably look Magellan first, Garmin second. That's my personal opinion. I can tell you that search and rescue, police and all that, they go Garmin. So there's definitely an argument for both sides, I think, here. But this is one I chose simply because I think, again, similar. This is a relatively reasonably priced, sub $200, fit in your pocket. You can go anywhere with it, and I don't think you'd go wrong. Highly recommend either of these, honestly.
I was just reading some comments there. Are you guys looking into GPS that you're paying monthly fee for? So Chris was asking about Spot, and all I'm going to say, Christopher, is wait to the end. We have a piece on the Spot. But sticking to just GPS at the moment. As I said, I included just GPS on my list because I do know there is some personal preference out there between Magellan, Garmin. There's another manufacturer. I can't remember what the name of it is off the top of my head. But anyway, whatever floats your boat, all good. Just make sure you get a decent GPS within their line. So I had a Garmin. I'm partial to Garmin over Magellan simply because I'm more familiar with it. No other reason. I have used Magellan. I've just always used Garmin because, as you said, government went Garmin, and when I worked for Natural Resources, we all had Garmin's.
Yeah.
Now, I did have some features on a GPS that I liked to pick out that I would mention, and some of these are going to be arguable, but this is just in my experience. I like a GPS with an external antenna. The one you have up here, like the Magellan that's in the background there, it has the internal antenna coil. 99.99999% of the time, it's going to work 100% great for you. There are certain spots where I've been through the province where I have gotten reception on my Garmin, and some of the, and I don't say Garmin as a brand name, but I mean my external GPS versus the internal coil. I just find to get a little bit better reception out of it. And I still recommend the GPS as a standalone device as opposed to using your cell phone as your primary, which if you want to, that's 100% your due. But for me, I like to carry the GPS simply because of battery life compared to the cell phone. Even the best cell phones out there, if you're not using them, are getting maybe 2-3 days standby time, like decent standby time if you're in an area that has reception. Even if you turn it off, it's cold and stuff like that, it's going to play on it. As we seen one of the times we went out, my phone was dying overnight simply because of how cold it was getting. Older phone, I know, but reality is that happens.
Yeah.
This sucker here, I mean, it is bulletproof. You can see that this has been well used, well loved. I have the buttons half wore off, the screen's all scratched to snot, the back's beat. I've had this thing like lost down rivers. I've dropped it down cliffs. I've dropped it out of a helicopter. I mean, it just keeps on ticking. My cell phone wouldn't go through that and keep on living. You know what I mean? GPSs, once you hit a certain price point, are generally built pretty ruggedly. This one is supposed to be 100% waterproof. I mean, like I said, I lost it in a river for an hour and it came back still working fine. I left it turned on. I forgot it turned on for over a week, and I still had battery left when I came back, like lots of battery, like 2 bars out of 4, I think. So that's why I just say if you're serious about going into the woods, at least consider some sort of GPS, especially if you're going deep woods. Not saying don't take your cell phone. Definitely take your cell phone, but give a real hard think to if maybe this might suit you just a little bit better. I feel safer going in with my GPS, using it as a GPS, than I would say going in with my phone using it as a GPS, coin for coin or pound for pound. And that was only my only reasoning for including a GPS as a standalone device on the list.
And I would like to point out too, if you are using your cell phone as your primary GPS, it really would behoove you to consider going with a program like All Trails, or there's a few others out there. I have found that when my cell phone service failed, even with Google Maps and stuff, I was struggling if I didn't have everything downloaded. I really struggled with Google Maps for that. But All Trails, I opened them up. I was on Crowbar Lake Trails here in Nova Scotia one day, and we went back a ways. I lost all cell phone service, and it wasn't important. Like, we didn't need to know exactly where we were, but we were curious. And as we were walking at one point, I said, I wonder. And I opened up because I'd paid for the subscription on that particular program. And it was flawless. Like, it brought us right in. I could really pick out on the trail where I was because I seen where I left the trail. And I'm like, yes, this is exactly where I'm to. It's very accurate. So I was very impressed by that. So I will say, like, if you're depending on your phone, you definitely look for some of these additional programs and make sure you've downloaded the maps and stuff. The thing is with the GPS is it's baked in, essentially, the functionality with it. You can lose your program on your phone. You can have issues. You can have glitches. Not that your GPS can't fail. It's great to have both, or at least one backup for the other. And I agree, better antennas do work better. And you do have to, even with those, watch your cover and stuff. If you're down into a valley or have a lot of coverage over you, sometimes even the best GPS struggles. So just keep that in mind.
No, for sure. Cape Breton Highlands is a bad area for that. There's a lot of valleys and stuff like that. High points for sure, but also deep valleys to go with that. And I can remember that in several spots, like nothing, dead zones.
I've experienced that myself. The thing to keep in mind with that is it does work off satellites. Basically, if you can't see the sky, essentially it can't either. That's not 100% true. Like, light canopy and stuff doesn't really stop at 100%, but it does always often have an
Mm-hmm.
effect. And the more satellites you can see, hence the more sky, the better your any GPS, phone, real GPS, it doesn't matter, the better it's going to work. So keep that in mind when you're using one. But they can be a lot of fun. I highly recommend, if you're getting into GPSs, get into geocaching. I don't care if you think it's geeky or nerdy or whatever. I know I am a bit of a nerd at times. It really does teach you how to use your GPS
Mm-hmm.
and how to really learn how to use the functions into it. And it can be a fun way to do that. And if it's fun to learn, you're going to learn quicker, better, and really understand the functionality of this particular device.
And I mean, it's fun for the whole family too, if you keep
Oh
that in
yeah,
mind.
oh
Um,
yeah. Your kids, they'll beg for it. You can take them out, and they'll love to find it. They'll get angry if you find it first.
Sometimes you have to sit back and just let them find it.
Yeah.
But
So
okay, so 2 points. One from the comment. Danny Swan asked, "Have you guys downloaded Google Maps offline maps? Works good." Yeah, Danny, we actually have. Well, at least I have tried it. I'm sure you have too.
I have,
And
yeah.
you made mention to the point that if you are going to be using it in an area where there's little signal, to make sure you download the maps. Still with that, we found, once again, Mel and I using it for the ATV adventure this year, even though we had the offline maps downloaded, using Google Maps from time to time, it would try and ping a satellite or try and get an internet connection. It would end up like freezing the phone up, for lack of a better word. It wasn't really froze up. It was looking for something it couldn't find, and it kind of got stuck in this loop where it would glitch up and you'd be constantly closing it, and opening, and closing. And that was partial to the old phone I had, to be perfectly fair. Since that's changed out, I don't know if I would still have the same issue or not. That was just my issue at the time. And the only last comment I want to make on GPS for anybody out there, this is kind of an FYI for people that, at the time myself, I used to like to take my laptop and turn it into a GPS. One of the convenient things with my Garmin is it connects through USB and you can connect it into your laptop. And if you have, I think it's called MapSource, it's been a while since I opened it. It might be Basecamp or something now. Garmin used to make a program back probably the late 2000s that was called En Route
Yeah.
or En Route. They have since stopped releasing it free, if I remember correctly. I think you still may be able to buy it or anything, but if you do enough Googling, you can still find the free version. You can download it. And basically, as long as your GPS is connected to your laptop and you're running it through MapSource or whatever the native software is, it turns your entire laptop into a great big GPS screen, which I loved at the time because I could do a lot of mapping stuff with it.
Yeah.
With natural resources, when we had to walk out the perimeter fires and stuff like that, for me it was easy. I could walk around with the GPS, come back, snap it into my laptop. I could show where the incident command center was, and then I could relay that like the waypoint from the GPS over, at the time it was Google Earth, if that still plugs in. And I could be talking about old technology here that may no longer exist. Maybe dating myself on this. But anyway, I could take the waypoints, overlay it on Google Maps, spit out a map, hand it off to my fire crews, and I mean, you had literally a satellite map with an accurate GPS around it, and you could kind of get a feel for terrains and stuff like that. That's just the application I used for it. There's a lot of other things you could do with that. It was very neat to have connected into a pursuit vehicle or something like that, and you can use your entire laptop as a GPS. It's just kind of cool. There's some cool factor. Something else for the GPS people out there that want to try doing something neat, definitely take a look at it. I have tried to replicate the same technology with my phone. It does not seem to work. Not as well, anyway.
It is funny you mentioned that. Back in the early 2000s, I had bought a Acer Aspire laptop. It's still here. I think it's over there in the counter. Anyways, when we did, they used to sell a Windows 95 GPS antenna. It was a little round antenna, square actually, that you could plug in with a USB, and it would turn your laptop into a GPS. And I had bought that. And I think I only threw it out a few months ago. But it was pretty neat because you could download like this Windows map system and you could put yourself on it. And when we were camping, we would use it occasionally. You turn the laptop on and get the GPS up, and you could figure out where you're to. I thought it was neat. It was a fun toy. But if
I mean, there was some novelty to it for sure, but I loved it. It was just so great.
yeah, the functionality of it was actually decent. The reality, though, like for a camping point of view, taking a whole laptop is not as feasible as if you're
No.
car camping, if you're overlanding or whatever they call those that other sport. Uh, it's more of a possibility for sure. If you're trying to backwoods camp going in deep, uh, I think a cell phone is big enough. A tablet, if I really had to really want more functionality, but I don't think I'd go to a full laptop.
No. And honestly, like you said, backpacking, camping, probably not. It just happened to be a neat thing I was doing
Oh, yeah.
for my instance. You know what I mean? And there might be other people out there that that want to do some mapping of their own. They got some, they just bought a huge plot of land. A buddy of mine, he was just showing me around his uncle property. It's like 500 acres. And
Wow.
they kind of want to figure out where like the lines and stuff are. And I'm like, oh, we're going to have to walk this whole thing and GPS it
Yeah.
out. But, and then it's just something out there if people are bored.
Yeah.
Um, anyway, that's our spiel on GPSs, unless you got more to add there, Ben.
No, no. Like I said, I think we both highly recommend it. I mean, it's a purpose-built device, and it really can save you. It can get you out in a pinch for sure, and it has a lot of functionality. So let's go to sort of the next big thing, I guess.
So this was something that we kind of looked at. It kind of came in by fluke. Ben sent it to me, thinking it was another product, but then we kind of looked at it. And we thought there's some neat stuff to this. So this is going to be a niche piece of technology that might be good for some people because it tracks a lot of good information. It's not as interactive as a full GPS. It's more of like a personal tracking device, but it has some nice GPS features. If that makes
No,
any kind of
Garmin
sense.
sells similar devices. They sell GPS watches.
Mm.
Not so great for like geocaching stuff, but to track your speed, height, elevation, all this stuff. And this is what this does. If you look at the original title, it says it has a barometer, I think, altimeter,
What's it say? Yeah, it's got a.
barometer, altimeter, speed, temperature, data logger. So basically, it's going to log the physical changes around you. So it's pretty neat. And $122. It's really good to sort of track where you went, what you did, depending on what you're doing and what your goals are, and just trying to figure out what your capabilities are. Devices like this can really help plan trips. So as you travel certain types of terrain and realize this, your elevation changes, your time, temperatures, and all that, you're going to really start to see trends on how you move through the woods and how different things affect you. And I think that's really important when you're trying to plan future trips, uh, especially bigger, longer trips. Having a history that you can go back and look at and say, okay, this is an 80-kilometer hike that I'm planning. How many days am I going to take? And assuming 20 kilometers a day, that might be realistic on good even terrain. But if you look at it and you're going up hilly, mountainous terrain, you might want to really tone that back. It may be 5-6 kilometers you're really realistically getting in a rough terrain. So something to really think about. The justification for that statement, because some people look at me like I'm crazy. If you watched Alone, guys did 1 mile a day traveling to
Mm.
their the partner one. So, I mean, that's relatively experienced woods people in heavy, hard terrain trying to track with a compass. Uh, Definitely makes it harder. Had they had GPSs, I think they would have actually moved faster. They had a GPS that was giving them coordinates. They're not tracking a straight line. They're not, they can veer off. GPS allows you to take a less direct but easier route and still get to the same detailed point. So there's kind of the advantage. Data logger is really going to track what you did
Mm.
and give you some idea of your success, your failures, your learning curves.
No, and that's kind of where I see it too. I see it as a personal recording device, which would help you further down the road, or if you're doing something like the Appalachian Trail, and you were trying to judge your pace and something like that, and you were like, "Oh, I should be here by X amount of days. I wonder how far I've gone," something like that. You can probably retrieve a lot of the information off that, and it's just kind of a neat little thing to track your own personal goals and things like that. Would I use it as a replacement for a complete GPS? No, as Ben explained, they're not one and the same. They're different. So if anybody's thinking, oh, $122 versus $200, there's a reason it's $122 versus $200. You're losing a lot of functionality. So just it's a neat piece of technology, a lot of useful applications to it, but just be aware of its limitations in comparison to a proper GPS or something like that.
And please be aware that there are, I mean, we are bringing up some products and not always necessarily the absolute best. These are ones we found we thought we'd talk about. Casio, Garmin, there's a bunch of other companies out there that put out very similar devices that are definitely worth checking out. Before you go spend a ton of money on a certain product, research it and find out if it has the functions you want for the price you're paying. You may be able to find something that does it better for less or better and gives you, allows you to eliminate another function. I noticed in our comments, someone made a statement on here to appreciate the topic, but I'll see you at GPS and raise you a map and compass skills after being trained by these guys on navigation. So I consider myself pretty competent with map and compass. I've learned with the military, with the ground search and rescue. Really, if you have a good map and compass background, it makes what you can do with a GPS infinitely more because you already understand the basics of how to truly navigate. Now you have a tool that increases this ability, and then the map and compass is always there as basically a fallback and an enhancement, because working together they give you a lot better accuracy than you'll get in any other way. GPSs really are limited at the close distance, but really help you with long distance stuff. Compasses kind of work the other way. When you put the two of them together, you have a basically unbeatable team, in my opinion. But I think a lot of people would agree with me on that. You can't shoot a straight line with a GPS like you can with a compass. I don't care what anyone says. On the flip side, with a compass, trying to hit a dead point is not as easy as it would be a GPS. You take two different points, say 500 meters away, going with a GPS and only a GPS, you're probably going to be off a couple of degrees. With a GPS, it'll lean you right back in. You'll be within a couple of feet, not 15, 20 feet. So there's a huge difference in there. Use the two of them, you have a skill set that can't be beat.
So back in the DNR days, when I worked with them, we actually put this to the test. We did PGIs. You heard me talk about them in past shows. We did one with only GPS and one with only compass. And the one with the GPS, it's literally a lot of, you know what I mean? It's not a good solid bearing.
No.
You still get to the exact dead point. Like when we compared the point at the end to where we're supposed to be, because basically with the PGI, they give you a starting coordinate and technically where an ending coordinate should be. And with the GPS, you get, like you said, within 4 feet of where it is. With the compass, you might be out like 20 feet, but a much straighter bearing to get there. You know what I mean?
So, and I think if you track even like time with the GPS, oftentimes, and all this is relative, of course, and situational, oftentimes you'll get there a little quicker with your GPS because the compass, you're going to have to stop and shoot your point, and you're going a straighter line, so you're trying to work around items. Teamwork can really improve upon that. There's a lot of stuff you can do, a lot of skills to learn to do using both. And I highly recommend people learn a little bit about both. Knowing a map and compass gives you the reality check to your GPS makes sense. Yeah, 100%, Dave. Danny. Yeah. Okay, want to move to our next item?
I was going to say, we kind of spiraled back to GPSs. But anyway, moving on. So the next one was one of mine. And this was a great piece of technology that I started taking with me faithfully in the woods. Now, I will say, I have the exact one that's in the picture there. I bought mine at Canadian Tire. I did not pay $69.99 for it. I bought mine for $15.99. All you got to do, these things go on sale at least a couple times a year, and they drop off ridiculous amounts of prices as Canadian Tire is known to do with some of their products. So just keep an eye for these. You can get them on Amazon. You can get them anywhere. And I'm not married to this brand. It was just happened to be one of those things that was at the end of the aisle when I was buying something else. And I was like, oh, a power bank. A buddy of mine talked about one of those, and he said it was great. I should buy one and see if it, how I like it. And you know what? Best 15 bucks I ever bought. I get 2 to 3 full charges on my old phone. I haven't used it with the new phone. I get 2 charges with the video camera when I'm taking that in to do any kind of recording. My point and shoot camera, I can usually get 4 or 5 charges on that. I mean, it was just a great thing to keep me running while I was in the woods. And my second product, and it's a separate page, but I kind of tie these two things together, is the solar panel charger. And I know you have the exact same one, Ben, because we bought them very similar times. This is the second part that I put in. I did buy it separate from the power bank. You can buy solar panels that have battery banks built in. There is a limitation to those, and we'll talk about them in a second. I bought them as 2 separate things because if this dies, I can just replace it, and this still works fine because it's all self-integrated. And this one specifically, I really, really like. I actually ended up buying a couple other ones to test them out, and I still keep coming back to this one because it charges better than the rest for whatever reason. I don't know what it was with this specific one. And once again, I have it up there in the website. This was bought on Amazon. It's no longer available on Amazon. That's why I found it there. It's a 3-panel charger, and it charges fast. Like it's got a quick charge thing on there, doesn't it?
I have the same one, and it does work really good, especially in good direct sunlight. I do find when the sunlight's a little iffy, it's not quite as good.
But it's still better than comparative ones, is what I liked.
My wife has a battery bank. I say my wife because it's hers, and I steal it all the time. She has a battery bank with a 3-fold out. So very similar to this. They're slightly smaller, and we found it. Because it's directly connected with it, it actually worked a little bit better in poor sunlight. It kept charging the device. And honestly, any combination thereof, though, like a good solar panel with any decent power bank, I've got small little ones that can do like a single charge on my phone. Some of them I think came in cases of beer. I've got them from like various places. We have probably about 30 of them in the house at different places. They're invaluable, and like that one you have, you can put them in your pocket, you can stick them in your gear, you charge them up before you leave, and you can always basically get extend the life of your phone, your GPS, because a lot of these things are now charged using USB. So that's great. That overall technology, even things like your flashlights and stuff are now oftentimes charged. My new headlight I bought this year charged with USB, so it's a great.
And the O lights that I got in, those all charge. What I like to do is I charge the battery bank and then charge my appliances from the battery bank. And I mentioned at the start I liked it separate, and I have one specific reason for this, and it's probably not going to be true in all instances, but in mine, I had a solar panel much similar to this with the battery bank built in. When the battery went bad in the battery bank, for whatever reason, maybe I cooked it, I can't remember what it wasn't that old, but the battery failed, it wouldn't hold a charge. For whatever reason, it kept trying to charge that battery than any device that was connected to it. So once the battery went, the whole system was shot. As where this one, if the battery bank dies, I just get a new battery bank. Look for the next one that's on sale and I'm good to go. And the solar panels are still 100% great because you can buy a battery bank with a solar panel on it. I think I seen one. It's 25,000 milliamp hours or something like that, and it's $40 on Amazon. Reality is the solar panels on those aren't that great either. I ended up getting one. I lent it to a buddy of mine. He wanted to take it down south for doing his vacation and stuff. He reported back, thanks, but it wasn't that great. So I tried it, and it really wasn't that great. And I ended up giving it back to him because he said, oh, it's good enough for what I want. But for me, it wasn't good enough for what I wanted. You know what I mean? And it comes down to the solar panel was literally just that big on it versus this one where it's got a nice big solar panel. And that's ultimately what made the difference. So that's just me and why I wanted them separate. If one part fails, I just replace the one part. And so far, I've been having really good luck with this for just a random purchase from Crappy Tire. But yeah, just do your research on battery banks. Pick up anyone you think is going to be good. Generally, you tend to get what you pay for. Not that it's going to be bad. It's just you might there's a happy threshold there. You know what I mean? If you buy a $10, 20,000 milliamp hour uh, power pack, don't expect it to last years and years and years and years. You know what I mean?
I guess just because we're talking about this subject, I mean, bigger solar panels collects more like potentially more power. Uh, Efficiency plays a factor in here. But there's another product out here that we're not talking about that maybe is worth just an honorable mention is the water lily. Now that's made, I
Mm.
believe, by a Newfoundland company. So I don't mind touting them that. And our friend Lone Wolf 902 actually had some sent to him, and he's tested them. And I bet you one of his. There's a good chance one of the videos would be his. That's a great little system. You can use them in the air, so you can actually hold them up. I think there's a kit you can add to them and expands for in a windmill type setting. Or you can just hook them up in a good breeze, they'll run, or you can just toss them in a flowing river, and they'll produce a fair bit of power. Yeah, so there's sort of like the expansion or the
Yeah, so that's the turbine, and this looks like
yeah.
power wind. So that's the wind upgrade, and they sell a few different things. But yeah, it's actually a really good system too. Unfortunately, I have zero experience with it.
No, I've never actually got to touch one. I keep hoping somebody will send me one for free, but it doesn't happen.
If you're listening, Water Lily, shameless plug for free products.
uh, but no, I think it's a great idea. It's great that someone actually built a product and sold. I think a lot of people definitely thought about it over the years and just never pieced it together to work. So that is an awesome idea. Um, Not usable in every situation for sure, but quite a span and definitely something I would consider putting in my pack for the right trip.
Oh, for
Uh,
sure. If you're going to be like base camping near running water, this thing, you could power a couple people's devices with this. It puts out a fairly good amount of energy. You know what I mean?
oh yeah,
So Steve asks, any high tech showering ideas? I thought about putting in a showering idea, but here is my 2 cents on showering ideas. The higher tech you get, you pay for a lot of great things. In my opinion, that you just don't need. Honestly, the best showering system I ever used was one of those. It might have been a crappy tire special, could have been a Walmart special. Just the black bags with a shower head on it.
yeah, I've had those. The nice thing with those black bags with the shower head on it is even if you don't have the sunlight, you can boil up a bit of water, throw in the bag, and still get a shower. Honestly, that's about as simple as it gets. And I'm not sure I would. I mean, again, anything more, you're starting to get out of backwoods camping and into car and base camping, uh, and a little out of our particular realm.
Yeah, I have used some of the portable showers that got like little pumps and stuff in them.
Yeah,
It was neat. It was really neat. But now you either have to charge them or you got to carry batteries around, and it seemed like there was more problems in the pickup than it was worth. Honestly, one of those black bags with shower head on it, they're cheap. It was like 14 or $15 for the one I had, if I remember correctly, and it just worked.
yeah.
You
I
know what I
have
mean?
one of the boxes that you hook a propane tank to, and it'll actually heat up. Um, that's a weird notice. It'll actually heat up water when it runs through, but it needs a certain amount of water pressure, so that tended to get complicated. I was suspending buckets of water higher and higher trying to do it. And, yeah, it is what it is.
And another comment, Danny Swan said he bought a USB adapter for his 20-volt DeWalt drill batteries. Works great. I'm assuming it's a power supply. I'd be interested in seeing that.
Yeah,
Being a little bit out in the woods, I wasn't aware such a thing existed. That's kind of a neat idea because I have a bunch of DeWalt batteries kicking around.
I can see that working really well because those DeWalt batteries are very powerful for the weight and size. So I
Yeah, no worries,
so
Steve.
yeah, so I think for sure, uh, definitely something to check out because I don't know if you'll beat the power to weight ratio on those. You probably get a dozen charges off of one of those on your.
Yeah, I would think because you're downstepping, it's 20 volt. Most output things through USB, if you're using it like that, are 5 volt, 5.4. So you'd be downstepping the voltage anyway, which means it would last a long time. I would think anyway. That's the way it's playing out in my head. Just to finish on your thing there, Steve, about the showers. You want to know what makes a really awesome shower? Take a literal dollar store tarp, put up some rope, make a little cubicle, same as you would a shower. Take one of those shower bags, put in top of it. Perfect shower in the woods. It's like you're just at home. Wife loves it, kids love it. You got privacy, you got nice water. I mean, it's literally the next best thing to showering in your home shower if you were out in the woods. If that
You
makes any
sit
kind
on
of
three
sense.
charge on a standard phone.
It's not bad.
Not
Um,
too bad.
Anyway, okay. So yeah, the honorable mention with the water lily, and the last device that we have on here is going to be the spot device, which was asked about a little bit there earlier. So we might as well touch on it. So walk us through what a spot actually is, Ben, because you have a tiny bit more knowledge on it than I do.
So these are, and there's another one I think in reach. There's probably a couple other companies out there, and it is basically a device that allows other people to know where you are. So basically, a lot of people really like these, especially for like solo trips. Uh, is somebody can actually see where you're to and check on you, and they often have a spot, especially have a message ability where you can send a message out. I'm a little unclear depending on which model you get, whether you can receive messages. I think the newer ones you can, the older ones you definitely couldn't.
So this one does say two-way satellite messenger. So you can send and
So
receive with this specific model that we have shown, which is on sale. I've been trying to figure out how to get more of my screen into our little screen here. It's just not working well for me, so I apologize, everybody. Actually, here, I might be able to do this. Why don't we go like this? Does this make more sense? A little smaller picture, but hey, there we go.
But I did notice some spot products are on like 50% sale right now at Walmart, Cabela's, Amazon. I think there's a few places. So just shop around, check it out. Don't purchase the first place you see necessarily. I think it's always a good idea. I looked it up because I know there's a subscription service with this, and this was one of the questions earlier. It looks like it's about 25, I assume, American a year, or 250 a month. They're actually just scroll back. No, it's just the price again, I think. So uh, maybe with the two-way messaging, it may be a little bit more. I'm not sure. Worth looking into. Uh, but if you're talking just peace of mind, $25 a year, hard to beat that. Even if you're paying a little bit more per message or something, uh, Spot Trace is $50. It just allows you to track, probably no messaging, but tracking alone. Uh, Anything like this that gives your family, your friends, close acquaintances, the ability to know where you are. It's a pretty powerful thing, and it's a great thing because people, when you're in the woods enjoying yourself, a lot of people are actually just worrying where you're to, how you're doing. This allows you to do that quick check in. I know a lot of people. I know there's at least a few people on here for sure. Uh, yeah, so I know there's at least one or two members on here too that have similar devices and use them. So I highly recommend people check these out. I don't have one at this moment, uh, but it is always on my back of my list that I should get one. And I think if I start doing more solo, and if I go any deeper, I'm usually still within a few hours hike of a cell phone signal. Is about as far back as I go. Um, but if I was going back to say Newfoundland, doing a lot of the hiking I'd love to do back there, I think it's a must-have. Uh,
And honestly, that's my only experience with one of these. A friend of mine that I went to school with became a helicopter pilot for a Bell 212. He started working at Natural Resources. That's where he got a lot of his hours and stuff in. You've been, you know what I'm talking about down there, Ben. And he got another job flying in Newfoundland. And he got one of these spot devices, and a lot of times that was the only way anybody could actually see where he was to, outside of, air control and stuff like that tracked the aircraft. But his friends and family, the only way they really knew where he was by just checking his spot map.
yeah, yeah. I mean, for anyone who happens to not be, I know we cater mainly to Atlantic Canada in what we talk about and where we explore. anyone who's not quite familiar with, say, Nova Scotia versus Newfoundland, or even Newfoundland is sparsely populated and it's almost all on the coast. You get into inland where I'm actually from, there's only a few thousand people in hundreds of hectares of land, for sure, like hundreds of square kilometers, really, if not more. And there's limited cell phone, limited roads, and a ton to explore. Check out people like the Newfoundland. I think is it the Newfoundland Explorer. There's a few other people that really do explore that area. It's some beautiful spots, but it is isolated, and an item like this still works. So it definitely gives that level of comfort if you're going to get to that. To be the same for all of northern Canada and many other places in this world, that you can be quite a ways away from civilization, and if they have to come find you, it could take years, honestly, if they have to explore these really remote areas to find a single individual or a single small item.
I think that pretty much covers everything we want to talk about tonight. I glanced through the comments. I didn't see any more questions. So unless anybody has anything else they'd like to ask us, or a statement or any input, I'm throwing that out there for anybody to say anything. But just while we're waiting for anybody to reply back, just a special shout out to 2 new viewers, I'm going to assume, because I haven't seen them in the comment section before. We have Yukon Cornelius and Zachary Murphy joining us tonight. Like I said, first time I've seen them in the chat. If you were on before and I missed you, I do apologize. But welcome to the show, guys. Hopefully we see you around a little bit more, and because that's what it's all about. We considered amateur radio for emergency comms. So when you say emergency radio, Danny, do you mean like ham radio? If it is ham radio, for instance, there is a little bit of involved in getting into ham radio, or at least there is here. You have to take a test. You got to get a license. Not that it's impossible. Don't misunderstand. It's just there is a couple steps involved. If anybody's interested in doing that, ham radio works great. There is still some dead spots with ham radio, unfortunately. But you do have to look into a lot of the requirements and stipulations, because your broadcast antenna, if you're doing it at home anyway, handheld devices, I'm sure, all fall under some sort of compliance. But if you're doing it at home, your antenna can't be over so much broadcasting power. It can only be so high. So you're licensed. You know what we're talking about here. It's just, I have looked into it. My grandfather was really heavily into ham radio. And I kind of got an interest through that. Literally, just the past couple months, I've been looking into it a little bit more. It's something I may try just out of curiosity, but it's quite a bit ado for something that you're going to be carrying around in the woods. My opinion. I don't know. What do you think, Ben? What's your...
I do have something to say here. So I've owned 3 or 4 small two-way radio systems. These things have 2 to 10 kilometer range, and they are very useful. They don't fall in the ham radio. I think they're GSMR, or there's an FRM or something. I didn't pay a lot of attention to that part of it, but you can buy them at Canadian Tire, Walmart, Amazon. They're just little two-way radios, and they're very useful. You're using them at events and stuff a lot too, right? You have,
I got like 6 of them sitting up here.
The nice thing with those, especially when you go with a couple of buddies and stuff, is it does allow you to stay in contact with each other if you need to separate a bit. It would have come very useful in recent trips I did, even one with my buddy Chris. We went in a foggy lake, and I mean, you kind of yell at each other, but that's kind of disturbing on a lake with other people potentially on it.
It's only disturbing to them. It's fine to you.
But no, it can be quite useful. There's been other trips where, for one reason or other, we decided to separate, just explore on our own. It would have been great to have that kind of capability, because sometimes cell phone reception, when you're in the woods, really does suck. Like it can be bad. And oftentimes when it is bad enough, I'll turn that radio off of my phone. I will turn off the voice and the data to extend my life on my device, and then turn it on periodically to check, usually when I'm at high points or areas I expect to have better reception. So a two-way radio system they're pretty good. You can definitely use them. They definitely have a place, especially with larger groups where you're stretching out over a distance, canoe trips, long hikes, stuff like that. Uh,
And Danny
Save
Swan
you a
kind
ton
of
of.
took the words out of my mouth just touching on his comment. He said VHF is great for general repeater comms. And yeah, Nova Scotia is great for repeater. Nova Scotia has always been Eastern Canada in general, but Nova Scotia specifically. We have always kind of been ahead of the curve when it comes to communications. I don't know if you're in ham radio. I'm sure you know, like Trunk Two, and those are digital channels and stuff like that. A lot of the designs we set up here are only now recently starting to spread out through Canada. We always kind of set the curve for that, or at least we used to when I was working with natural resources. That's what they always told us. So yeah, Nova Scotia is a great place for local communications like VHF and things like that. And there's a product called a Belfang, which is a Chinese or Japanese or Korean. I can't remember. Anyway, overseas radio, inexpensive. You get one of those, you get the programming cable, you get the CD. The whole works of it's under like $100, and those things work great. I actually see a lot of them being used in fire departments as backup radios, honestly, because that's how good they work. Aside from like our Kenwood and Motorola's that we actually get from places like True North Communication and stuff like that. But Belfang, excellent product from what I've seen from it. So, oh, that's
It's
what you got. So there you go.
funny you mentioned that. LMR Communications in Lunenburg is actually owned by my brother-in-law, or co-owned, anyways.
Oh, seriously. There you go. So shout out to LMR.
He does sell the Kenwood and the Motorola and stuff, and to fire departments and all that. So that, he does the repeaters and stuff. I've seen where they set them up in different locations and stuff. So yes, we do have that technology out here.
Belfang? I know I'm butchering that word, but you guys know what I mean. If you Google whatever I've been squawking out, trust me, the radios will come up. Places like GearBest, I seen them on sale for like $46 delivered to your door. Now, there is another question, Ben, which I'm going to leave to you because you'll have a little bit more insight from Steve McDonald, actually his wife, Sonia. Um, Camping in Newfoundland, are there good maps and good info?
Good maps can be gotten in various places for sure. I can't tell you right off top, but I do know there are some good maps. As for info, really, it's probably best to try and talk to some locals for each of the areas. And I say that because as a local for very central Newfoundland, my original hometown is Buckens. Anyone who ever wants to look up Buckens, Newfoundland, it is the middle of nowhere. There's no doubt about it. It's just keep looking inland until you see it. We're 72 kilometers away from the nearest Trans-Canada highway, major highway. There's a lot of roads and stuff that'll never be properly mapped back there, and a lot of things that you kind of need to know about the conditions. And those conditions change day to day, month to month, for sure. If I'm going home, for instance, there's a Burgeo Highway. There's a way of getting to my hometown that's not the normal route. Sometimes of the year you could do that in your Honda Civic, no problem. Don't worry about it. There's other times where I would look at you, Robert, and say, don't try it in your Ford Ranger. It just won't make it.
Oh, that's a challenge now, Ben. It may not make it in one piece.
So I owned a Ford Ranger at one point.
I pity you too, bud.
Right? And I went there one time, and this was in the spring. That muddy road was pretty muddy, and a skidder had gone up, and I think the skidder got stuck, honestly, a few times. So as I was going, I think I got it doing about 45. The speedometer was saying 60. I think I was moving 45. And I was terrified to move the throttle any, and I was just holding it sort of at a very canted angle, and it was going straight. And I went for 45 to 50 minutes straight like that, where I was terrified to slow down or speed up because I figured that would be the end of
her.
So that's the soupy type of mess that I hit in the back roads. But if you get back there is some of the most beautiful terrain you'll ever see. There's some awesome fishing. It is an amazing spot to sort of check out. There's a ton of stuff you can see in Newfoundland if you get there. A lot of it is fairly accessible, and some of it is quite a ways back there. But I would highly recommend talking to locals and getting the general conditions and stuff. When I make a trip back, I will usually call a few friends I know from the area and say, "What are these roads like? Are they worth considering? Should I stay away from them? Should I take?" That's very important. I've done the old railroad track system back there. It's really good for ATVing and stuff. Uh, one trip I took, I had a cabin that was off of one. I can tell you that from the Friday when I went in, the road was awesome. The Sunday when I came back, there was a rainstorm. I made it back. I went back that Monday morning. Half of the track was missing for about 300 feet of land, and it was sheer up. Like there was a washout that I'm not sure how I didn't get washed out in it because, like I said, I drove over that the night before. So it is like day to day, month to month, season to season, huge changes. So check it out, find out what the locals are saying. But if you have the right equipment and you have the right knowledge and you're prepared, it can be great. If you're not prepared, uh, be prepared. It's a strange way to say it. Be prepared when you go because you don't know what you're going to see, and you may be back in some of those areas for days without seeing anyone.
Justin Bourbon, is that his name?
Yes,
So, uh,
Barber,
Barber?
just
Barber. YouTube or Google him. He traveled across a lot of Newfoundland backpacking. If you want to see like some of what the country looks like, Newfoundland, beautiful place. Been there quite a few times in my life. Beautiful, beautiful place. But like Ben said, if you're not familiar with the area, it's real easy to get, or it's real easy for things to go real south real fast.
yeah, yeah.
It is
I,
challenging terrain.
I've spoken with Justin a few times. We have had some discussions. I have sent him some coordinates of things to check out. I don't know if he ever did. Um, there are some beautiful streams, rocks, lakes, rivers, stuff back there that are definitely worth checking out. And some of it, honestly, if you don't know someone who knows about it, you may never ever find it. So it's like anything. I think there's similar. There's very beautiful places here in Nova Scotia. There's very beautiful places in New Brunswick. I've been to a lot of them. I haven't seen all of them by any means. Uh, but backwoods maps and stuff. Uh, I'm not sure. It would vary from point to point. I was pleasantly surprised with places like All Trails. That
Mm.
map site had trail systems in there that I was kind of surprised they were that well. So I would probably check around and see what the locals are using. If the locals are using it, it's probably pretty good. Um, but I can't give it a solid answer any more than what I probably already have.
And anything I'm going to feed you is just speculation because I haven't been to Newfoundland in about 10 years now. I'm due for a visit, honestly.
Yeah,
No,
we
it's going to be
should.
longer than that because Mel and I have been together for 16 years. So I haven't been to Newfoundland in almost 17 years, sorry.
Maybe this is a plan.
I'm game. I love Newfoundland. Deer Lake. I have fallen in love with Deer Lake and I love that place.
You haven't been back to Buckins yet,
I
buddy.
don't know if I want to go back to Buckins, Ben. That's where you're from. I'm terrified of what I can find back there. But anyway, yeah. Yeah, so um, all trails, like Ben said, even Google Maps, not Google Maps, Google Satellite, Google Earth,
Yeah.
check the date the photos were taken. Don't let yourself get led astray by something that's been taken like, 12 years ago. But if they're fairly recent, I've used that around Nova Scotia and had good success. Like print my maps and stuff off before I ever set foot in the woods, laminate them, bring a couple dry erase markers, and you can literally start plotting your own map out of those things.
Oh yeah, very good system. We do that with a lot of our trips now. Uh, you know, we have a decent printer, we have a laminator, and we print little maps. Sheet size maps, laminate them. It's a very useful tool, and it keeps wet. It keeps them from getting wet and stuff. And it's cheap enough that if we do lose it, it's not like breaking our hearts.
Nah, I mean, if you keep them, it's a great memento from the trip, and if you lose them, what do you out? $3 total
Not
for
even
like a laminating pouch and a little bit of ink and a sheet of paper you're gonna use for it. I print mine in color, Ben. I'm a high class redneck.
I have I have a color printer. I actually bought the
I never
tank
said you
top,
didn't have a color printer.
and I have a hot laminator.
Oh, do you? I usually
Yeah.
just get the laminating sheets from the. I do have a hot laminator. I usually don't go. Okay, maybe you're a little higher class redneck than I am. But anyway, yeah, there's lots of options. That's just one that I've used, had great success with. Is literally Google Maps. As long as it's in the last 2-3 years, I generally go okay with it. I won't take it as exact things the longer it's been since the pictures have been taken. But you can get geological landmarks that'll keep you on track for stuff. Like chances are, big hills aren't going to disappear. Rivers probably aren't going to dry up over 2 years. You know what I mean? So keep that in mind. Use big landmarks that are probably going to sustain the test of time more than the time it's been between when the photos were taken, and you can get great results out of that.
Irving, though, if you go in Irving, they used to sell. I don't know who made the company, but they used to sell backwoods road maps. Have you ever purchased those?
Not recently, probably not since the early 2000s.
Well, I bought one only 6 or 7 years ago now, but they used to sell, and they were fairly accurate. Uh,
Where'd my book go?
there's a book you could open up, different sections
I
to
was
the
gonna
map.
say I think I actually had one here for Nova Scotia. It was the backwoods trails to Nova Scotia in a book.
Yeah, yeah. I'm pretty sure there's one for Newfoundland too. If nothing else, those were glossy paper. If not, I don't think they're laminated, but they would be fairly water
They held up
resistant.
against water fine. I took them out in the woods and like rain
Yeah,
didn't kill them. I don't think
no,
I'd throw it in the river, but
no, exactly. It's my thoughts, but that might be if nothing else, you can pick those up. I think for $10 or $15 at most Irvings and stuff. So it may be something to consider um, as a backup. And then I would definitely look at some of these online maps, like you said, with satellite images and stuff. You know the area you're going to, you can really dial in what you're doing.
well, look at that, Ben. I made the comment that I didn't think it was going to be an over an hour episode, and it's been a while since we had a short one. We're still at an hour and 6 minutes, so I guess we maybe better start packing it out.
Okay, but think about it. There's only 24 hours in a day. And we're soon to 100 episodes, and we know that most of our episodes exceed an hour.
For
So,
sure.
yeah, we soon can fill 4 of your solid days with solid listening.
And just because I have them sitting beside me and it's a good part of the episode, if you hung around this long, you can listen to me ramble and plug our own stuff. If anybody is still looking for one of these, we still have lots in stock. These are the Atlantic Bushcraft decals. We have them in, okay, yeah, everything's reversed in my picture. We have them in white and black. Missy G Makes has made them. There is application instructions on the back. You can find these on our website, which is listed down here. Hey, look, I got it right this time. Down here. They're inexpensive. Just get a hold of us. We'll get the mailed out to you. Unfortunately, you have passed your threshold to get them by Christmas unless you live in one of the local areas where we can literally drive it out to you. So if you're ordering from out of province, unfortunately, there's a real good chance you're not going to get it before Christmas. We apologize for that, but that's just the way everything is going. If you live in province and you're not in one of the danger zones at the moment that we're not allowed into, potentially we can meet up and we can get that to you. And yeah, other than that, if you're looking for a neat little gift for somebody, or if you just want one, there you go.
I can throw out.
Wait. There we go.
If you go camping with me, there's a good chance you get one of those for free.
There's a real good chance you'll get one for free. Uh, to my credit, I haven't given away a lot of them for free. I have one for my truck. I have one for Mel's car. The rest I have kept. Because I'm bad for giving stuff out. But anyway, I've really tried to be good about this because Missy has put some time into these. They're very high quality. They look good and great application.
You got to say, though, they look pretty sharp on a car.
They look incredibly sharp. I was going to get it made in a magnet to put on my truck, only to find out that my tailgate is aluminum. Magnets won't stick to it. So now we have one of these.
Yeah. I'm doing a canoe up, and there's those decals are going on the side of that too. So.
They are sharp. And if anybody's wondering, once again, you can check out our website down here, atlanticbushcraft.ca. If you look on the left-hand side of the screen, you will find the links, the little thing that's like a shopping cart, bring it to the store, and we have a couple items there that are for sale that you guys have asked for. We are still looking at patches, if anybody's wondering about that. We have a couple avenues we're following now. I want one for my camper. I'll be in touch. Danny, just shoot us an email or hit us on a contact form, Facebook, whatever you want, and we'll make sure that we get one out to you.
I did get more information on patches.
Okay, we'll talk after the episode. I got a little bit more information too, and I'm hoping yours is better. But anyway, that's it for me tonight. Anything else for you, Ben?
No, I'm good.
All right. Everybody have a good night. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you again next week for episode, 93, I think we'll be going into next week? Yeah, 93.
Soon going to be Christmas, buddy.
I know.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas, everybody. See yous.